welcome to Codex History of Video Games. I'm Mike Coletta.
And I'm Tyler Osby.
And today we're back talking about the Ultimate History of Video Games Volume 2 by Stephen L. Kent. This is our book club series, and we encourage you to buy the book because it's very good.
It is. It's real good. Love this book. And the Volume 1 and Volume 2, both really good if you're into video game history.
Definitely. Very good. So where we last left off was in the middle of chapter 17, and this might take us 3 episodes. I'm thinking this is a very long chapter.
This is a really long chapter, but we had last left our Activision heroes, which is kind of weird to say. I'm going to leave it though. Activision heroes.
I like it.
Well, they're not our heroes. Nobody likes Activision. Well,
That's
maybe
true.
now that Microsoft owns them, maybe they'll be better, but this book came out before that deal was signed. Anyway, they had signed a publishing deal with id Software, and this is like in the late 90s, early 2000s era. So that's what time period we're in. This was a great deal for them because id used to be one of the biggest powerhouse developers in the industry. They still are, but they used to be too. It was a big deal.
I like that.
A little Mitch Hedberg for you. But there was another up and coming developer around this time in 1998 that was pretty big for Activision to get as well. A Woodland Hills based developer called Neversoft. So Activision first reached out to them for help developing some kind of like skateboarding video game because in the late 90s or mid to late 90s, skateboarding was all the rage, and so were like all extreme sports. You remember this period of time where it was just like all extreme sports all the time? Skateboarding, snowboarding, rollerblading. Like if you were a cool kid, you were doing one of these. It
was so cool, and I tried, and I was so uncoordinated. Let me tell you what. Oh, I'm glad I play video games now because yikes, I fell a lot.
I did a lot of rollerblading. I actually had a half pipe at my house.
You had a half pipe and you rollerbladed?
I had a half pipe. Yeah,
rollerblading
on it.
I feel like rollerblading has come back and it's cool again. You know what I mean? Because it got kind of made fun of for a while. It was a hit. We all rollerbladed. Then people started making fun of you for it. And now I'm like, no, it's back.
Yeah. And everybody pretended they never rollerbladed, but really, we all did.
There was a game for PlayStation where you would BMX bike, rollerblade, and or skateboard down these like downhill courses, and you played as like an alien. I don't remember the name of this game, and it's going to drive me crazy, and I'm going to find it for next. If you know what I'm talking about, I hope someone's screaming it into their microphone right now. That's what I want. Their
They're
microphone.
Like, it was Disney Extreme Skate Adventure or something. I don't think that was it.
Yeah.
That was a game.
It was some game where it was like downhill, and you could choose between those 3, and I loved rollerblading in that game. I thought it was so cool. They're bringing it back, so.
Nice. So anyway, Activision, of course, wanted to jump on the bandwagon by releasing a skateboarding game. So they went to Neversoft, who was pretty unknown at the time. They'd make a couple games. They weren't like anything to write home about. But they went to Neversoft, and they brought in a famous skateboarder named Tony Hawk. Mike, are you familiar with Mr. Anthony Frank Hawk?
I sure am. I love his Twitter now. His Twitter is so funny. It's about him getting identified as being Tony Hawk, but the people like questioning themselves in the middle of it. It's very good.
Yeah, they're like, you look like that skateboarder guy. And he'll be like, yep, I am that skateboarder guy. And I'm like, oh, cool.
It's just all of his awkward interactions. It's great.
I like to think that if I ever saw Tony Hawk in real life, I would know it was Tony Hawk.
I'd be like, hey, you are Tony Hawk. And I know that. And I like you. And I like all the stuff you've done. And your skateboarding video game was my childhood. So thank you.
Truly altered the course of my life. I have a signed photo of Tony Hawk and Steve-O doing a really cool wall ride skateboard thing.
Dude, that's awesome.
Happy with.
One of the weird things about doing stand-up comedy is that I've worked with Steve-O because that was like, and it was hard to not completely nerd out. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And be like, I watched all the stuff in Jackass and Wild Boys and all that things. And I was like, it was really a weird moment. And he's really nice. He's a very nice person.
He seems like a nice person. I like to watch his YouTube nowadays because he just seems like a very nice person.
He's a very good, honest, nice person that will occasionally just light his own butt on fire. So it's fun, for everybody.
You got to do what you got to do, right? Everybody needs to make a living.
Everyone needs to make a living.
But back to Mr. Anthony Frank Hawk. We're talking about Tony Hawk's Pro Skater. You know it. I know it. This game was a massive hit. I played the crap out of this game. I never actually owned the first one, though. My buddy had a copy, and we just played it like straight into the ground on N64. And we've done an episode on this series of games, but boy, these games were like, from a gameplay perspective, truly top-notch, really formative for me. But also the licensed soundtrack of like authentic skate tunes that like I still know all the words to probably the first 2 Tony Hawks and most of the third one, I think, too. After that, I kind of fell off, but boy, it's
so
great.
Good. And we talked about the new Tony Hawk's with what was the newest one? Because they did like multiple remakes of the first two games, but the newest one was the best one.
Yeah, they did Tony Hawk Pro Skater 1 and 2, the remaster.
Yeah, and it's so good. And it gives me all the feels, but I also had the N64 version of the game. It was great.
Yeah, and it was like the N64 version had like 5 songs on it, and they were like 1-minute clips that just played over and over of the same like part of the song. It was like mind-blowing when I first played the PlayStation version of the game, and A, the sound quality was so much better, and B, there were new songs that I didn't know and more to the songs that I did know. I was like, whoa. Pff.
Okay, I never noticed that. You just told this to me. Today I learned that I was listening to 1-minute clips of the songs. I had no idea. I thought that was the full song.
They did a good job of looping them. I don't know if they're like 1 minute, but they're definitely like pared down versions of the songs.
Oh my gosh. Now I feel like I got robbed. I bought Goldfinger's album, the CD, as a kid because I loved the theme song so much.
So you love Superman?
Superman's a great song.
It is a good song. And the PlayStation version had more songs because it was rated T for teen, whereas the N64 versions of those games were E rated. So they had like curse words in them.
So I was sitting in my basement in Eel River, Alaska, playing this game, thinking I was a rebel, when in reality I was listening to cut down versions of the songs in an E-rated game.
That's right.
I was not a rebel, is what you're telling me.
No, you were not a rebel. I do think the N64 version was better overall because the graphics were a little bit better, but the music, you got to go with the PlayStation one. Man, what a great game though.
Great game. Also, one of those games that I beat multiple times because my save file always got corrupted on my N64 memory card. Oh. Yeah.
Also, it needed an N64 memory card, which was kind of strange because most N64 games did not require that.
Yeah.
They like saved straight to the cartridge.
Perfect Dark saved all your stats, and I played that game so much, and it never ran out of room. It just always had space for my stats. It was great.
It was just saved straight to the cartridge, right?
Like, straight to the cart. Yeah.
Strange thing about Tony Hawk did not save straight to the cart. And it had Rumble too, and so you couldn't have a save file and a Rumble pack in at the same time.
Yeah, which is a big bummer. But I mean, that's a thing of the past, I feel like, right? Like that's something that you and I had to deal with that no one now will ever have to deal with is the Rumble or save pack.
Yeah, now I'm starting to think the N64 version of this game is garbage, and it's just the PlayStation version is truly superior. Actually, the most superior version of the original Tony Hawk and Tony Hawk 2 is the Dreamcast version.
Really?
Not counting like remakes, obviously 1 and 2 are fantastic, but the Dreamcast version has great graphics, and they do have one of the first game, and it has all the songs, of course, in full like CD quality, and it's got the best of all the worlds. Those are the best versions.
All right, Dreamcast fan listeners, you're getting called out. Great game. Yep. Good job.
Yep. You have the best versions of Tony Hawk 1 and 2. Anyway, Tony Hawk resonated with a lot of other people too because the game sold like hotcakes. It sold like gangbusters. And Tony Hawk made the excellent decision because he had 2 options on the contract. Either he could just take straight up $500,000 for his name on the box. That's it. They would use his name forever, and he would get $500,000, which is sounds like a good chunk of change, especially if you don't know how well this game is doing. But he also had the option of taking a percentage of sales. That's what he did. He took the percentage of sales, and now he'll never have to worry about money ever again. Like Forrest Gump says, that's great. That's one less thing. And neither did Neversoft because Activision bought them. They're like, this is great. Keep churning out Tony Hawk games for us. Thanks, Neversoft. That's what Activision kind of does. They're like, or at least did in those days. They would like finance a company to make a game. And then when that game was a hit, they'd say, okay, you only make this game now. Also, here's a big whole pile of money.
Dude, I love that. I also love that you compared Forrest Gump's shrimp boat to Tony Hawk's video game. That's a very good comparison.
Yeah, because that's when they he's like, we bought stock in some kind of fruit company, and we never had. And he said, we don't have to worry about money ever again.
Oh, it was Apple. That's right. Gosh.
Yeah, Lieutenant Dan said, we don't have to worry about money ever again. He said, that's great. That's one less thing.
Side tangent. I know there's a lot of like gripes about Forrest Gump being like a very much a rah greatest generation baloney.
Sure.
But I think there need to be more movies where they just throw one person into like every historical event because it's hilarious. It's such a funny idea of a genre of like throwing one person into every major historical event in a time period.
I would love it it doesn't need to be Forrest Gump exactly, but like a movie in the style of Forrest Gump where we just take because when that movie came out in like 95, right? So we just like pick up from there and like every historical event that has happened since like between then and now and just like put a person in all of them. That could be a real downer, though, because there's been a lot of bad news in the last 30 years.
That's true. You really got to cherry pick the good news to throw them in, so it's not too much of a bummer. Because Forrest Gump, already kind of a bummer.
Yeah, that's true. That is overall kind of a bummer of a movie. But great movie, and if you haven't seen it, you should watch it, because it's awesome. So anyway, now Activision is on a licensing rampage. They have just learned the secret to the infinite money glitch, and that is make licensed games. Licensed games are great from a publishing perspective because they kind of guarantee at least some sort of audience for your game. Like you put Tony Hawk on the cover of a skateboarding game, that lends legitimacy to a skateboarding game. And it means that anybody who had ever seen the X Games in the past couple of years knew exactly what they were getting into, because Tony Hawk was crushing it at the X Games in the late 90s.
They really were.
Yeah, they were so fun. And that's like, he did the 900 there, the first 900 at the X Games.
That was a hype moment as a kid.
Yeah, that I can picture exactly how that spin goes every single time, and it's just like burned into my brain, like so cool. He did one recently, and by recently I mean in like 2015 was like the last time he did the 900, which he was like 45 then. I don't know. He's pretty old now.
Really?
Yeah.
Well, I want to make sure we point out that we're not even through page 1 of our notes yet, and we've already had 3 side tangents. So we're in it today, folks. We're doing
mostly about Tony Hawk.
Mostly about our love of Tony Hawk and Steve-O.
Oh, man. I love Tony Hawk and Steve-O. Anyway, Activision wanted more of that. They were like, cool, we can make games cheaply, slap a license on it, and sell it like hotcakes and gangbusters. Sounds great. And EA was like, this works well for us, too, because they'd created some franchises. Like they did build like Madden and the Tiger Woods franchises and stuff, but like they sold because they have Madden on the cover, or Tiger Woods, or whoever they have the FIFA license, right? Like licensing is lucrative. Okay. EA is at this point is after the license to Thrill, and I'm talking about James Bond.
Ooh, we've also done an episode on James Bond games.
We have, yeah. And Kent is quick to note here that obviously this license was like well-worn area, and including the John Glames games. That's what we talked about when we did our episode. John Glames. Because GoldenEye was already out, and it was a massive hit. Like, everybody loved GoldenEye. But that game was when Nintendo had the license to James Bond. And they were originally slated to release a bunch of Bond games, but they were like, nah, GoldenEye is enough, I guess. We don't need to make more, which is kind of crazy to me. Be like, oh, we have this smash hit of a game. Nah, we don't need to make more of them. That's like typical Nintendo.
I wonder if it had to do with their relationship with Rare.
Yeah,
right?
Maybe. And I think there's some speculation, Kent kind of notes this in the book too, there's some speculation that MGM sort of like, I don't know if they revoked the license or if they had some sort of refusal rights and like they couldn't come to an agreement with Nintendo on any future ones or something like that.
They were like, oh wait, we can cash in on this instead, so we should just cash in on this ourselves. Yeah,
probably. Or they were like, now that this license is worth $1 bajillion, we can give it to EA instead and get $1 bajillion instead of only $500 million. And then at this point, Kent takes a detour into the Ultimate James Bond Interactive Dossier, which is a Windows 95 CD ROM like game, which is like a real microcosm of 90s software tropes. I looked it up online, and it's like you put the disc in, it's like a big old, like, it's just a really big fancy DVD menu that has a bunch of information on James Bond movies, but doesn't actually have any James Bond movies on it. Just info on the James Bond movies. It's like Encarta, but for James Bond.
Oh, so it's just like all the DVD special features with none of the movie.
Yeah, and I don't even think it had that much.
Also, I definitely had an Encarta disc. So I know exactly what you mean when you say that. Like growing up, the Encarta Encyclopedia CD-ROM. Oh, man. Slapped. Used it for papers.
Sure did. Even well into the Wikipedia era, because Encarta you could cite as if it were an encyclopedia, and no teacher would ever accept anything from the internet.
Which is funny because now I often ask, because I have that burned into my brain, and being like working at a school, I ask, can they use Wikipedia? And it's always yes. Yeah. Well, yeah, and like... The real move is to don't cite Wikipedia directly. You go to the sources that Wikipedia use. Mm-hmm. When you read a fact on Wikipedia that you want to use in your paper, there's always a footnote, like a citation. Go to where they found it, and then you can cite that too. And that's what we do in our podcast. When we were doing those things on games, I would go down and I'd look through the citing, like the sources at the bottom, because those are way more legit. And a lot of the time, weird, crazy information in there from like... Yeah, they have even more info. From like old game articles from like the 90s, which is great. Like old internet, like old archive stuff. Oh, so cool. Mm-hmm. Yeah.
So anyway, after Nintendo stopped making Bond games, EA acquired the license, and they released 7 games over the next 6 years, or 9 if you count the 3 different versions of The World Is Not Enough, which is legitimately 3 different games. Nintendo 64 version is a different game from the PlayStation version, and then the Game Boy Color version obviously has to be very different because of the limitations there. They also released games with unique storylines like Agent Under Fire, Nightfire, and Everything or Nothing. Those are all original stories with no ties to the movies, and I think that's pretty cool.
I need to play those still because I played Nightfire's story, but I never played Agent Under Fire and I never played Everything or Nothing. And we talked about those in our James Bond episodes. You did like all the Call of Duty games. I might go do all the Bond games. I kind of want to try it.
I'm thinking about it too because I have been on a huge Bond kick of watching all the movies. I've only got 3 movies left now. I need to watch Skyfall, Spectre, and then the newest one. And I've seen Skyfall and Spectre, and I just haven't seen the newest one. I've watched every James Bond movie, and so like now I want to like compare them to the games, or like I feel like I have some sort of authority on James Bond storylines, you know?
I like in the notes, by the way, that you read, I've seen every James Bond movie, even Never Say Never. Is that a really bad one?
No, Never Say Never is the last James Bond movie that Sean Connery was in. It was released in 1983. It's kind of I don't want to say it's a remake of Thunderball, but it is a retelling of the same story of the Thunderball book. Like there's through licensing shenanigans, like one company got the license to every James Bond story, and like for some reason this other company also got a license to the Thunderball story. And so Never Say Never Again, I think is the full name of the movie, is that company doing their version of Thunderball, but they also managed to get Sean Connery. So it's like, it feels super legit, but it's not like, it is not made by the same company that makes every other James Bond movie.
That's very weird and interesting.
So some people don't count it. It's also not that great of a movie.
Weird licensing has created some real gems. You know what I mean? Weird licensing things. Oh, I love it.
Yeah. And it does have Rowan Atkinson in it as like a bumbling sort of like, he's not like a secret agent, but he is like, he works for the government. He is not very good at his job. Very Rowan Atkinson. So anyway, I've seen Never Say Never. But they got, for Everything or Nothing, they got Dame Judi Dench. They got Pierce Brosnan. They got John Cleese and even Richard Kiel, who played Jaws in The Spy Who Loved Me and Moonraker, to like reprise their roles, which is pretty cool. And then in 2005, they did From Russia with Love, and they got Sean Connery to do the voice, which is the last time he played James Bond in anything. And it was the first time he did anything since Never Say Never or Diamonds Are Forever, depending on how you feel about Never Say Never, if you think it's a real Bond movie or not. I still think it counts because it's Sean Connery and he's playing James Bond. And just because it's not made by the same company that makes other James Bond movies doesn't mean it's not a James Bond movie.
Yep, I agree with that take. I think that's a solid take. I agree with you.
So by that time, though, in like the mid 2000s, licensed games had sort of become played out. And EA took a step back from licensing when it came to movies or big media franchises. They did keep their sports licenses, though, because that got them access to real teams and players in those games, which is pretty important, I think, for a sports gamer. Because there'd be a million football games right now if anybody cared about playing football, but people really only care about playing NFL football when it comes to playing a video game, right? And I also think that the licensors figured out how lucrative their contracts could be and started raising how much it costs to do a license. Like before, it was just like, yeah, sure, somebody can make a video game out of our movie. We don't care. And then they started realizing it like, oh, these games are actually making a lot of money. We can make it more expensive to make a game based on our movie. And so then it becomes less profitable for like EA and Activision to keep doing that. So they kind of just stopped. And then Activision ended up with the Bond license, and they only released a couple of games, and then they were like, nah, we're done with licensing in general for the most part, which is kind of the end of an era, I think. I remember this era, although I wouldn't say I remember it fondly. Remember, this was like the time of the time where every single movie, especially kids movies, had like a video game tie-in, and most of them were pretty garbage. There were a few gems though, like Spider-Man 2. That was a pretty good one.
Yeah, I remember this era for sure.
Yeah. And like, if you saw a video game based on a movie, it was like 9 times out of 10 garbage. But I guess they sold well because they kept doing it for a while.
There were a couple ones though that you'd think would be bad, but I remember actually having good experiences with. Like I guess this is kind of before the time of this, of like, I guess it's the beginning of the licensed game phase. For N64, there was a game based on the Disney movie Tarzan, like the animated movie. And that game was actually pretty fun. Because you would like do the tree surfing thing.
Oh, yeah, that sounds cool.
Yeah, so some of them like weren't total garbage. Now, I would say it was a good game. It wasn't a great game. It's not like a 10 out of 10. But I remember having fun with it. So while a lot of them are crappy, there were some hidden gems in there for sure.
Yeah. That would be a good like series to do. I don't know if that'd be like good for this podcast, but like finding those good licensed games from the era, like just digging through the crap and finding the good stuff could be a fun.
That would take so much time though, because there is so much bad stuff out there. Oh my goodness.
You'd have to be passionate about finding the good stuff.
You really would. You'd have to be a real detective. And you'd also have to find them, which might be the hard part for some of these games.
Yeah, that's true.
Straight up like combing through used game stores to try to find these weird sites. I don't even know if I have the Tarzan N64 game still. I gotta look in my collection.
Yeah. Well, the license bubble burst at a certain point, and most publishers opted to focus on original IP after that, which is good riddance, if you ask me. Though I think it's about time we got a good Bond game. I don't think we've had one since like 2012, the 007 Legends, which is like, I think it kind of told the story of like several different Bonds. It was like a anthology kind of thing. I don't think we've had anything since then, although the rumors are that GoldenEye is going to get a release on Xbox Live.
Really?
Yeah.
Like the original, or like they're going to completely redo it?
I think they're gonna do it like they did Perfect Dark on 360, where it's like graphics are upgraded, but more or less it's the same game, because that exists already. The remake, they made it for 360, and then for some reason licensing shenanigans, I'm assuming it never got released. So it exists. They just would need to port it to the Xbox One or whatever, or PC. But GoldenEye did get a remake in 2011, I want to say. It got like an Xbox 360 remake. It was like GoldenEye 007 Reloaded, I think they called it. And it was straight up remake. Yeah. But I guess it wasn't.
My whole thing, though, is to me, the experience of GoldenEye is like playing it on a CRT TV with that weird control, with the N64 controller, which now we can all agree, weird controller. You know what I mean?
Trash. Yep.
So I don't know if I'd still get that if I played GoldenEye on an Xbox One.
Yeah, I maintain that, like, when people talk about, oh yeah, GoldenEye is a great game, I'm like, I think it was good for the time. It was the first time a first-person shooter felt good on a console, and it was the first first-person shooter a lot of people played because of that. But it was not that good. It ran at like 15 frames per second, especially if you're doing like 4-player split screen. It's not that good.
Yeah, I think Perfect Dark was better for sure.
Yes, I agree. Yep, Perfect Dark was
Perfect Dark.
Better.
They took everything that was good about GoldenEye and they put an original IP on it, and the story campaign is great. It's weird and out there, but it's really fun. It's very video gamey to me, and the multiplayer is stellar. They have bots, all sorts of crazy weapons. It's really cool.
Yeah. Big fan. So at this point in time, we're getting rid of the licensing stuff, but this was the real rise of EA. They were worth billions by the end of the 2010s, but this money came at a price. People hated EA. They hated them so much that in 2012, they were voted the worst company in America, according to Consumerist, which is not a good look. Now, worst company in America, or I don't remember if it's America or the world. I mean, there are probably companies that are like polluting and like, you know, employing slaves or something. Like there's probably some real bad stuff going on there. I don't know if EA is that level, but in terms of like just like making games that people didn't like or appearing to be so preoccupied with money that they would put out garbage. I think that's why people really disliked EA. Was there something big that happened in 2012 that like sort of was the catalyst for this? Was there like a big game release that came out that was bad?
We're going to talk about it pretty soon here, but in the next section, I talk about, well, because there's a lot of things leading up to it, but I'm going to talk about this in probably about like 5 to 10 minutes, and I have some reasons leading up to why people don't like them.
Awesome. I'm excited to get there then. The people, I know some people were upset about sports licenses because they had the exclusive license to the NFL, because there used to be a ton of NFL games. There was like Sega's 2K series, NFL Fever, Game Day, the Quarterback Club games, and then they were just gone because EA got the license to make NFL games, and nobody wants to play a football game that's not full of NFL players.
Yeah, and that's one of the
bad.
big reasons that they're not liked a lot in the 2010s and 2012s, and now arguably.
Yeah, still, I loved NFL 2K5, the Sega one, which was a serious contender. Because it was only $20 when it first came out, like, which is actually insane now that I think about it. I don't think any game back then, like a new game, was generally $50 back then. $40 maybe if it was like a bargain game. I think Katamari Damacy was like $40 or something if it was like kind of a weird oddball game. But like Sega putting out NFL 2K5 on purpose for $20 on release is absolutely insane to me. And it was a better game than Madden. Like, it wasn't like, oh, it's cheaper, it's not as good, but it's so much cheaper, it's worth it. Like, it was actually better, in my opinion.
Like, legitimately higher quality.
Yes.
And
like,
it also was $20.
Yeah, it was, everything about it was better. The online didn't work as well, I remember. I played a little bit of online on it, on my PS2 online, and there was like some lag, I think, that Madden didn't have. So, but it was not a deal breaker for me, especially in those days.
Especially if it's $20.
Yeah. But people didn't really like that Madden was the only way to play an NFL football game. So the scrutiny became immense on EA. So it was like, I don't know, people were just mad at EA. And I'm excited for you to talk more about that.
Oh, yeah, we'll get right into it in the next section. So get ready for it.
Before we get there was one more front in the battle between Activision and EA, and this one is a little bit more literal, military shooters. So they were starting to pick up steam in the early 2000s. By the late 2000s and 2010s, they were the biggest franchises in the world. Activision has been putting out a new Call of Duty title every year since the franchise started back in 2003, 2002. And EA has tried to keep up. First, they had the Medal of Honor series, which started in the late 90s and sort of kicked off this craze, and then it kind of died out. And then now they have the Battlefield series, which started around the same time as the first Call of Duty game did. So the first Medal of Honor game was actually initiated by Steven Spielberg himself, who, fresh off of making Saving Private Ryan and Band of Brothers, wanted to branch out into the world of video games. So he talked to DreamWorks. They made Medal of Honor, which did pretty well because it was a different kind of FPS from others. It was like slower pace. It was a little bit more somber. It was World War II. It was a little bit less like, let's kill these demons, and more like, shoot, this was like a real conflict that people died in. But people loved the game. And I remember when Allied Assault came out on PC, and it was the benchmark game for many years. Like when new graphics cards or CPUs would come out, for years after Allied Assault came out, they always had, that was always one of the benchmarks that people would do with it. Plus, it had that epic beach storming scene, like something straight out of all the other World War II stuff that Spielberg had worked on.
It's funny to me that Steven Spielberg, one guy, got super into World War II military history, and through movies and TV shows and video games, shaped pop culture.
Yeah. Like just one guy, like your it's like the uncle that like is super into World War II. Like that was Steven Spielberg, so he could make a movie and a TV show and a video game.
It's just, it's such a weird thing. Steven Spielberg and Tom Hanks, those two guys were the reason that we all got into World War II in the early 2000s.
That is absolutely insane to me. Because like any other, if it weren't those two, like if they didn't have the money and the backing and the ability to make these things, they would have just been like, oh yeah, Tom's really into World War II. And he might have a room in his house that's like, you know, he's got models set up and like recreations of battles. You'd be like, oh, that's pretty cool, Tom. You're really into World War II, huh? Well, see you later. And like that would be the end of it.
And that's it. But instead, we shaped pop culture and arguably video gaming forever with first-person shooter multiplayer.
That's so funny. Yeah. The Allied Assault was made by a company called 2015 Incorporated, which employed Jason West, Vince Zampella, and Grant Collier.
I think Collier sounds right. It looks French. It looks very French.
Sure does. So. Yeah. But these three guys would spin themselves off to start their own studio with the backing of Activision and the promise of a World War II game that could beat Medal of Honor. And this company was called Albert Einstein. Just kidding. It was called Infinity Ward, and they made a little game called Albert Einstein. Just kidding. The game was called Call of Duty. And I don't know if that was good or not, but
I liked it. It's staying in.
Okay, great.
We've done so much worse jokes on this show.
We have done a couple episodes on Call of Duty, so we don't need to like rehash the story here. But it did better than Medal of Honor, and it sold like it too. Like Medal of Honor sort of died, and like they tried to bring it back a couple of times, but it never came back to the level of Call of Duty.
Am Team Medal of Honor. I am.
Wow.
I started with Medal of Honor. I even played Medal of Honor Frontline, I think is what it was called.
Mm-hmm.
The last one. My brother and I played it online and loved it. I kind of want to replay all these games and do a history on them because I feel like this is a important thing that people are just throwing away for Call of Duty.
Yep. Well, I will be here for that episode. I'm very
Although
excited.
you can argue that Medal of Honor is now just Battlefield. Like they kind of took those people and moved them over to Battlefield.
Yeah.
You know, and that's their thing. So
That's EA's like main competition for Activision's Call of Duty now is Battlefield, and boy, have they had some missteps in recent years. It seems like they can't do anything right with Battlefield.
Did you hear they like recently, because their meetings about like their quarterly meetings about how they did are like public, and the transcription came out and they're like, yeah, we didn't think Halo would just destroy us, was in their meeting.
What do you mean you didn't think Halo would do? Okay, there's a lot to unpack there.
Because they didn't know that Halo was going to come out at that time.
Yeah.
And I think it was 4 days before Battlefield 2042 came out, Halo released the multiplayer beta to everyone for free, and it just destroyed them. Yeah.
Well, I mean, the game also wasn't very good. Like, I feel like you can survive something like that if your game is good, but I think they're like looking for something to blame that's not game sucks.
Yeah, I mean, I think they're looking at all the factors, but really, yeah, the only people they have to blame are themselves because the game just didn't have anything new in it. As a Battlefield fan, I didn't get it. I was like, I'm glad I didn't pre-order this because it doesn't look like it has new features in any way. It's just kind of the same old, same old.
Yeah. I wonder if it has a trial on Game Pass or EA Plus on PC. Probably does. I could probably give it a couple hours.
The Portal thing was a cool idea where they combine all the old Battlefields into one multiplayer experience.
Yeah.
And I was excited about that, but that just wasn't enough to carry the game. And I really don't think there's a population playing it very much anymore.
Oh, that's too bad.
Yeah, it's a bummer.
Yeah. Well, that's it. That's where we leave EA and Activision here on my end. Call of Duty versus Medal of Honor. Medal of Honor kind of dies. Medal of Honor tries to be a little bit more realistic, and Call of Duty is like just fun. It's not realistic. It's much more like action oriented and fun. And I think Call of Duty kind of ate Medal of Honor's lunch. And Battlefield is a different game. Like people like to pit Battlefield versus Call of Duty as if they're like the same thing competing against each other, and I don't think they are. I think the audiences are kind of different because Battlefield's like bigger matches, like with like 64 players per match, and Call of Duty's like if you're getting more than like 10 people in a Call of Duty match, that's like too many people, right?
Yeah, I would agree with that. Also, I feel like Battlefield is very much about that action movie experience.
Yeah.
Whereas Call of Duty is a little more, I don't want to say competitive, but more focused on the shooting team squad aspect of it.
Yeah, yeah.
So now the next section of the book is titled, quote, The Perils of Bigness. And we're starting to see some problems with these empires EA and Activision have built. And going back to what Tyler was mentioning about them being the most hated company, you could really say it all started in 2004 for EA. There was an anonymous LiveJournal post from, quote, EA Spouse. That was their handle.
LiveJournal.
I know, LiveJournal, right? That went up basically calling out EA for their horrible treatment of their employees. They described that EA would have teams working 9 a.m. to 10 p.m. 6 days a week, even before crunch time. This is just them working like normal.
Jeez.
And then they would make the employees do that 7 days a week when the game is about to be published, when they are in crunch time. And this crunch time included no overtime, no compensation time. And compensation time is when you take vacation equal to the overtime that you've done during the crunch.
So it's like you work a double for 3 weeks in a row and you get 3 weeks vacation.
Exactly. Yeah, like that. And a lot of employees also just working themselves to exhaustion or illness in this case. And on top of that, a lot of the time, this caused more problems with the game that led to even more hours trying to fix things they had broken because they were exhausted or tired or sick, you know?
Yeah. I mean, working people that hard, they're not machines, right? Like, so there is definitely not just diminishing returns, but like negative returns. Like if you work somebody too hard, your thing becomes worse because of it. Like you shouldn't be putting people in that many hours. And I'm kind of amazed that more video game companies haven't like figured this out, because crunch seems to be a pretty big problem in the industry.
Yeah, I feel like I talked about this maybe on the podcast before, but when I lived in Los Angeles, I had a roommate who worked at Infinity Ward as a contractor. He was an animator, and a designer. He would just design like the 3D models and stuff. And it was on one of the Call of Duty games. I never saw him when they were working on the game. He was gone pretty much 6 days, 7 days a week. He'd come in for like an hour or two or a night and go to sleep. And then he'd go back to the office. It was pretty nuts how much he was working.
I would burn out very quickly and find a new job.
And he was like, yeah, they give me dinner and everything and breakfast and lunch, but they do that because they want me to stay there. And I'm like, that's just... I mean, he really came home at like 11 or midnight and would leave at like 6 in the morning. It was pretty bonkers. So EA spouse, though, the screen named, turned out to be a writer and game designer named Erin Hoffman, and her fiance, Leander Hasty, was a programmer, and they both worked on the Lord of the Rings Battle for Middle-earth game. And so they were legit, and they started 3 class action lawsuits against EA, and this whole thing was just a huge stain on the company's reputation. So that's the first thing that is leading up to them being the most hated company in America in 2012. The second, as Tyler already mentioned, was NFL licensing and taking that away. So there's zero competition in the NFL games medium. It's entirely Madden. The third, and this might be not the biggest one, but definitely, I think the employees is the biggest one because you're straight up treating your own employees terribly. But this is pretty big because this also involves treating employees terribly. EA acquired and closed over 40 studios.
Oh, and beloved ones too. And Activision is guilty of this as well. But like they'll buy a studio that made like a really great game, and then they'll say make another one, and then that one is like kind of mediocre, and then they'll say okay, you're garbage now, and just shut them down.
Yeah, and
gosh,
and they talk about a lot of them in the book. I'm just gonna do one of them, and you should read the book and check them all out because they have stories for all of them. But PopCap is really the big one they mention. And PopCap, if you didn't know, they actually are based in Seattle. They make Bejeweled and Peggle, and at the time, their most popular game in 2011 was Plants vs. Zombies, which is a game I played for fun for a little bit on my computer. Very cool. And EA bought PopCap for $650 million in cash and $100 million in stock. They then, the following year, laid off 50% of the staff, including the creator of Plants vs. Zombies, George Fan.
Holy moly.
So this guy makes Plants vs. Zombies for PopCap, makes the company a ton of money. The company gets bought by EA, and EA lays off the creator of one of their big games. It's just baffling. Yeah. Peggle, which is another game that I love, and I don't know if you've played Peggle, but it's really fun, eventually was turned into a free-to-play microtransaction mobile game, which confused many people. There's a quote from Jeremy Horowitz in the book where he says, quote, supposedly EA acquired these games to enhance them and give them life, end quote. So I guess to EA, enhancement is really just the definition of the word, because profit-wise, they are enhancing them, I'm sure, by making them free-to-play. But for player experience and fun, I don't think that's the way to go. And I have a hard time on this podcast, we talked about this before, like dogging on free-to-play games, because for some people, that's their entry into games, because they don't have the money to purchase games. And I think it's a great entryway. But when you have a game that's like really good, like Peggle, and then you take it and turn it into a phone game that's free to play with microtransactions, that just says a lot about what you're trying to do. You're just trying to make money. You don't care about fun. You know, I think we can all agree on that. So,
yeah.
The next section is titled Beat It. And I'm stoked because we're about to talk about rhythm games, which is a big part of Tyler and I's childhood, specifically like high school, college rhythm games. And this section begins with a quote from Alex Rigopoulos, I hope I'm saying that right, who was one of the co-founders of Harmonix, makers of Guitar Hero and Rock Band games. I'm not going to read the whole quote here, but the gist of the quote is that Rigopoulos really credits Masa Matsura, the creator of Parappa the Rapper, and Tetsuya Mizuguchi, a game designer at Sega, as important figures in his life to like making Guitar Hero. And I think that's cool because while some of us think, like I thought specifically, Guitar Hero and Rock Band kind of came out of nowhere when we were teenagers. To me, as a teen, I was like, where did this come from? This is so cool. It turns out there's a like line of rhythm games in Japan, starting with Parappa the Rapper, that really made this genre a thing. And brought those over to the United States and made it so I enjoyed them in 2006 when I was in high school and loved it.
Yeah, there was like the Guitar Freaks series of games. And...
yeah, I got a whole list of them in a second. It's great. Yeah. So Parappa the Rapper was released in 1996 by Sony Computer Entertainment as a new release on the PlayStation. Creator Masaya Matsura heard that Sony was looking out for like their quirky ideas and the rhythm game that Matsura had about an anime puppy that raps his way out of strange situations fit perfectly with what Sony was looking for. And in Japan, Parappa the Rapper was huge. It sold 1 million copies. It didn't do as well in the US sales-wise, but it still had a following. They talk about in the book how there's this craze of Parappa the Rapper. They had t-shirts, and this also caused a big boom in rhythm style games in Japan. So I'm now going to give you the list of games that spun out because of this craze. They were Space Channel 5, Beat Mania, Samba de Amigo, Dance Dance Revolution, and many more. And games that deserve their own episode at some point, I'm sure. We should do an episode on these games, I think.
Oh, yeah. We could do a whole series on the history of rhythm games, I think, because there's like a rise and fall that is interesting, I think.
And it's weird because the fall is now they're in arcades.
Yeah.
You know, that's this Guitar Hero arcades like Dave & Buster's, which is not necessarily a fall, but definitely different than where we all thought they were going, for sure.
Yes.
So the US developers Harmonix teamed up with a peripherals manufacturer called Red Octane to create an American version of the Japanese game Guitar Freaks that Tyler just mentioned. And this was a good business plan because bundling the game with a guitar controller meant that they could charge more money and both companies could share the profits comfortably. You know, it was like selling 2 games in one price-wise.
It's like $100, I want to say.
Yeah, totally. It was like, I think the retail, I'm going to mention it later, but the retail for the PlayStation 3 and Xbox 360 was $99 for a Guitar Hero 3, I think. So Harmonix had a critical but not financial success with their first 2 games. They were called Frequency and Amplitude.
I love those games.
I know. And they were actually like critically like really well done. They just didn't sell super well, even though Sony put like a pretty good marketing bit behind them. It's like people weren't ready yet for them.
Yeah.
You know? So they were all primed and ready to go when they broke through with their new hit, Guitar Hero. And the first Guitar Hero was heavily inspired by Guitar Freaks, like I said, but there were some pretty notable differences. Guitar Freaks was entirely J-pop music, while the Guitar Hero games, as most of us know, focused on rock and metal music. Like they had like Ozzy Osbourne and stuff like that in there. The background video of Guitar Freaks Kent described as an early MTV music video, which I liked. Well, Guitar Hero, you're at a rock concert. You're at like a giant epic rock concert performing. Guitar Hero also changed how the fretboard looked. Like Guitar Freaks had it like kind of on the side and it wasn't that big of a thing. Guitar Hero made it look like the 3D was coming at you, so the notes were approaching you.
It was like more exciting.
Yeah, and the fretboard was like an actual guitar fretboard. It was modeled like on a guitar.
Yeah.
Which, while it was like a minor detail, actually did make a big difference, I think, in how you look at it.
I think of the success of Guitar Hero as similar to like karaoke, where like karaoke is where people go up and like pretend they can sing, right? And like sometimes somebody can sing and like that's kind of interesting. But like Guitar Hero was like karaoke, but for playing guitar. And it was so easy to pick up and play that like anybody could like play it on easy mode and like feel like they were a rock star or feel like they were doing karaoke. Like, you know, when you're doing karaoke, nobody actually is up there going, I'm a rock star, right? Like I can actually sing. And it was the same with Guitar Hero. It was like just karaoke, but for guitar. I thought that was really cool.
Yeah, that's a very good way to put it. I've never thought about it that way, but that is totally true. Because like I didn't play Rock Band thinking I was going to get picked up by a band, you know?
Yeah.
I was just playing for fun with my friends. It's a good time. So Guitar Hero 1, the first Guitar Hero, went actually almost entirely unnoticed in 2005, and it wasn't until Guitar Hero 2 came out in 2006 with their PS2 bundle that came with the guitar that it really broke through and became the 4th best-selling game of that year. Guitar Hero...
Wow, the first one was not that big, huh? I remember it. I had it. And maybe it was big in like the video game world and hadn't like broken through mainstream yet or something, because I had the first one before the second one came out.
Yeah, so it didn't... It still came in 9th in 2006.
Oh, like okay. So it was still pretty big.
Yeah, the year that Guitar Hero 2 did really well, the original Guitar Hero went up to the 9th best-selling game. So it's like started in 2005, got bigger in 2006, and people actually went back and bought the first one then too, which I thought was kind of cool. So when Guitar Hero 2 went multi-platform, Bobby Kotick noticed and bought Red Octane in May 2006 for $99.9 million. So now Activision owns Red Octane. Meanwhile, MTV buys Harmonix 4 months later for $175 million. So, oh no, they split up the band.
They made different bets. Like Activision is betting that it's the instruments that make the difference here, and MTV is betting that it's the developer that makes the difference here. That's such an interesting bet.
Yeah. So what they do is Kotick teams up Red Octane with Neversoft to make a Guitar Hero game, and Harmonix and MTV are making their new game, Rock Band. And so you have Guitar Hero 3 Legend of Rock versus the first Rock Band game. And Kent points out that even though the games had different peripherals, like the Rock Band, they described it as a party game, and it was. It had drums, a microphone to sing into, a guitar. They are unmistakably familiar. Like,
they're the same thing.
The same thing.
You can use the peripherals between them to a certain extent as well.
Yeah, I'm going to talk about that in a bit because that was kind of a thing of drama too. So Guitar Hero 3 retailed for $89 on PS2 and Wii, while the Xbox and 360 versions, Xbox 360 and PS3 versions, as I said before, were $99. Rock Band, meanwhile, sold for $169 because it had more instruments. And there was some drama there because, like you just mentioned, the peripherals were supposed to work between both games, but they definitely didn't. Rock Band peripherals did not work on Guitar Hero games.
Yeah. And it was seen, I remember, at least in my mind, it was seen sort of as like a slight towards Rock Band because you could use the Guitar Hero 3 guitar in Rock Band, but it didn't go the other way. And it was like, that's not Harmonix's fault. That's Activision's fault for actively blocking it, or Neversoft's fault. I'm sure Activision's the one that made the decision.
It's pretty messed up. But both games were neck and neck as far as sales go in that time.
We probably talked about this when we talked about, did we do an episode on Guitar Hero and Rock Band already?
I don't think we have yet.
I feel like I've talked about this before on the podcast, but I was so excited for Rock Band. I had a pre-order on it at GameStop because I was worried they wouldn't have enough because it was a physical thing and it was big. And I skipped school to go pick up my copy of Rock Band. I don't know if my mom is listening to this podcast, but we definitely skipped a class in high school. It was one of the few times I ever skipped a class in high school. I really didn't do that, but I did to go pick up my Rock Band.
No one knew until now that you're one of the original bad boys of plastic guitar video games.
That's right. Well, it was like a weird. I had a journalism class where we were allowed to leave campus to go sell ads in the paper. So a lot of times we would leave to go, air quotes, sell ads, but we would just go do something else. That's what we did here. So like I was skipping school, but it was also halfway sanctioned, so it wasn't as bad as it sounds. But anyway, I just remember, I have a vivid memory.
In retrospect, didn't hurt anything too bad. You know what I mean?
No. I have a vivid memory of going. Matt in Japan was there too, but he was not in Japan at the time, obviously. And we went and picked up our copies of Rock Band because he was in that journalism class too.
That's a fun time though. When you're in a class in high school that you can kind of like skip, but you're not skipping. That's a good. I did that. It was a great time. Being a TA was that. It was awesome. Okay.
Yeah.
So the Rock Band Special Edition and Guitar Hero 3 are both competing, right? And it turns out, as far as sales go, the PS2 version of Guitar Hero 3 was the 4th best-selling game of 2007. Rock Band Special Edition was just behind it in 5th place. So Kent reports that both Rock Band and Guitar Hero had a combined $1 billion in sales, and they were actually 11% of the US video game market in 2007, which is a lot. And so
insane.
In the whole Rock Band versus Guitar Hero technically won, but we're also not factoring in the fact that Rock Band cost more than Guitar Hero. So maybe it made just as much money, but I don't know how that works. And so I think we can safely say Guitar Hero won, but by a very small margin. And both of them were so big that both companies made tons of profits. Like, it doesn't matter.
Yeah. I think Guitar Hero went a little bit more ham than Rock Band did on the putting out too many games and contributing. Like, they both were guilty of like putting out a bajillion games once they got big, but I think Guitar Hero went a little bit further, and that's probably why they're able to squeeze out a little bit more profit.
Yeah, and you also have like the idea of buying songs as DLC, and then you had
Rock Band was way better for that.
Yeah, and then later on you have, Green Day Rock Band and Beatles Rock Band and all these other ones too. So it's Guitar Hero had the same thing, I think.
Yeah, they had Aerosmith and they had a Metallica one, and
So
Yeah.
they both pretty equal, I would say. And I mean, both great business decisions by MTV and Activision in this case, making tons of money off of this. And really, MTV, you could say, really banked in on the craze, you know?
Mm-hmm.
So for Activision, though, between Tony Hawk, Call of Duty, and Guitar Hero, they had a major stake in the games industry. And on July 24th, 2007, Activision overtook EA as the top earning third-party publisher, with first half earnings of $398 million compared to EA's $366 million. So that's pretty big. And that's where we're going to leave it off today. And this chapter, again, is super long, so hopefully we can finish it the next time we have an episode on Ultimate History Video Games. But next week, we're actually going to do a mailbag episode because we got some things going on. Some of us are traveling, so we got the mailbag episode next week. So if you want to have a question on the mailbag episode, you can send us an email at codexhistorypodcast@gmail.com if you have a question for the show. And with that, Tyler, what you been playing?
Oh, man. I've been playing a game from a small indie company called Bungie. Well, they're not small indie anymore. They got bought by Sony. Called Destiny 2, The Witch Queen. And I've been playing it with you, and we've been playing the campaign on Legendary mode. And I got to say, I think it's the best campaign that Destiny has ever had, especially playing it on Legendary. It's been really, really, really hard for us to play. We've been playing, like, you and me and a friend, like, playing through all of them. And, like, each level feels almost like a raid. Like, it's very, very difficult, really satisfying level of difficulty when you finally get it. But there is still, like, the regular mode, too. So if you just want to blast through the campaign, you can still totally do that. But it's worth it to play through on Legendary. I think it's satisfying, and I think the rewards were worth it at the end, too.
Definitely. And I actually was like thinking like, oh, I just want to blast through this campaign. And they're like, no, I'm going to play on Legendary. Like all my friends are doing on Legendary. I can play with you, Tyler. It's going to be fun. And you're right. It was so rewarding when we beat the final boss of the final level. I felt so good. It's that raid feeling of like, we did it. And then it gives you rewards that jump your power up by like 20 points, which is really good.
Super worth it.
So it's totally worth it to play on Legendary. And I had a great time. And honestly, if you want to play it on Legendary and you don't have people to play with, that's okay because it does kind of balance for you when you're alone.
Yeah, it's maybe a little bit easier if you play by yourself, to be honest.
Yeah, like when we played with 3 people, it was kind of unforgiving. But if the levels I played on Legendary alone, I struggled for a bit, but I would normally always beat them in about an hour. So
yeah, same.
That's but we've been playing a lot of Witch Queen. I've barely played any other games this week. I did try to dabble a little bit and pick up Dark Souls again because I've been kind of getting Elden Ring fever, even though I can't play the game because right now the PC port is apparently not very good. It's got some issues. Yeah.
Some frame pacing issues.
I would play it on a controller anyway, so my thinking is I'm going to wait until eventually, in 2025 when I can get a PS5, I'll play Elden Ring, I think.
There you go.
That's how it's going to work. That's my prediction, 2025.
2025 is when you can get a PS5.
I'm not an optimist right now about getting a new console.
Yeah, I also played Metroid. I finished Metroid Dread.
Oh, you finished Metroid Dread? Congratulations.
I beat the last boss. It was very difficult, but in a satisfying way. The boss fights are always these like, this feels impossible. How could anybody do this? There's no way anybody could do this. And then as you keep doing it, you start to recognize their tells. You start to like, I think that's sort of the Dark Souls-y feeling of like when you're playing the boss on Dark Souls and you're like, okay. And you can make it through the first phase reliably. And then like you get obliterated in the second phase. You're like, okay, you just keep doing it. You keep making it through the first phase reliably. Eventually you can make it through the first phase without getting hit. And now you're starting to get a little ways into the second phase. Like you just got to keep throwing yourself at it. And you got to take breaks when you have played several tries in a row and you haven't made it as far as like you had been making it. That means it's time to take a break. Don't keep stressing yourself out because I just get tilted and I end up like getting mad that I can't even beat the first phase now. So anyway, that was my experience with the final boss, but I eventually got it. It was a lot of fun. The ending sequence is really great. So I recommend it except for the Emmy sections. Those are not fun.
There were some people in our Discord saying they love the Emmy sections. And I was like, oh, they're going to tear this podcast apart right now.
Good for them. I'm glad they had fun. I didn't.
Well, when I play it, I'll put my 2 cents in on the Emmy sections and let you know. And it might cause a rift in our relationship.
We might,
as friends, but we'll be okay. We can disagree politely.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. But that's it. That's really all I've been playing is just Destiny and Metroid.
Yeah, I've been playing Destiny. I kind of taking a break from Witcher 3 and Pokemon right now. I am still thinking about Witcher 3 though. Don't think I stopped thinking about it, Mike and Philly. Don't think I don't think about it all the time, okay? It's just I want to beat Pokemon first, and now they announced Pokemon Scarlet and Violet, and it's just a really exciting time, you know?
Yep.
So we got some emails to read. I am going to jump in here first. We got an email from Mario500 mentioning very briefly about Flashpoint from bluemaxima.org. This is a web game preservation project related to our Flash episode we did recently. So you can actually download Flashpoint and search the collection for all these Flash games if you want to play them. I didn't know about this. So thank you, Mario500, for sending us that email. That's great to know. So you should check this stuff out. Tyler, do you want to read the next email from Skilp?
Skilp. Hello from Skilp. So Skilp says, first off, just want to say thank you for doing what you guys do. The podcast, Discord bring a lot of enjoyment to my life. Oh, no problem. I was trying to think of a good topic for a question, and I figured since the Olympics are on, this email is a little old now. We haven't gotten around to our email in a while. It could make for a decent topic. If gaming were to be considered an Olympic event, which game would each of you have the best chance to medal in? Could be PvP, high score, speed, challenge run, etc. I'm assuming the answer would be Jaybird, but thought it would make for a decent enough talking point. You guys are the best. Peace. Besides Jaybird, obviously, which I would be the world champion at. It's not even close. It wouldn't be fair.
There's no contest.
You know,
literally, there's no other competition. No one is playing the game.
That's right. It's just me. Besides that, I'm not like good at video games. So the game that I would have the best chance at medaling in, like, it would have to be something obscure, you know, like, I don't know, Space Cadet Pinball, maybe I could do pretty well in because, I don't know, a lot of people played that game.
See, I've kind of had a realization from this episode, and for a very specific event, I think I could all golds, all characters, Tony Hawk Pro Skater 1 for N64 pretty quickly.
Like it's like speedrun it?
Speedrun it. No exploits. Okay. Play the game. I think I could do that. Just a straight up playthrough. And I think I could have a competitive score. I don't think it'll be the best score, but I think I would be competitive in a speedrun of all golds, all characters, including Officer Dick in the Tony Hawk's Pro Skater 1 for N64.
And Private Carrera?
And I don't think I had Private Carrera on the N64 version, did I?
Oh, I don't know.
I don't think so.
I'm pretty sure she's there.
Maybe it is.
In Spider-Man, in Tony Hawk 2. I could probably do it with Tony Hawk 2.
Yeah, because you played Tony Hawk 2 more than I did. So I feel like that was actually kind of fun about the remake, is that felt like a very new game to me because I never played Tony Hawk 2 really. So it was super fun.
Yeah.
But yeah, that's great. It's great. Anyway, that's how I think I would compete, is all golds, all characters, Tony Hawk Pro Skater 1 has to be on an original N64, and it has to be using the N64 controller. Give me those C buttons.
Yeah.
Let me show you what I can do. Do a little Benihana, you know?
Oh, I know.
You know about Benihana.
Yep. I think Tony Hawk 2. I mean, yeah, I guess that's not which do you think you would medal in. It's would you have the best chance at medaling in.
Okay.
Tony Hawk.
I think Tony Hawk. Yeah, okay. So we found it, you know?
Yep.
I would say if you'd asked me this, like, in high school, I would have said Super Smash Bros. Melee for N64. And then I went to one party when I was 18 and learned that other people were playing that game and had strategies and destroyed me.
Just on another level.
Yeah, this guy had Link out and he was just throwing bombs the entire time and just destroyed all of us. Like, we could not compete with him throwing bombs. He would hit every single one. We would all just not even get near him. And it was just, it was a really traumatic time for me because I thought I was good at this game and I was not.
Dang, that's too bad.
All right, so we have 4 emails from Alex. They're all pretty short. I'm going to read them right now, okay? The first email is id Software. Just watched the id Software episodes, and I just remembered that John Carmack is the CTO, Chief Technology Officer, of Oculus. Thought that was cool.
That's true.
From your favorite monster spider butt hunter. And yeah, I completely forgot about that. It's a fun little factoid.
Yep.
Next 2. Alex, regarding Monster Hunter. Hi, my name is Alex from Grand Rapids, Michigan. I actually went there to do comedy, Alex. I might have been near you, and I didn't even know it until now. That's nice. I might go back there soon, though, so I'll let you know. Okay. Love the pod. You guys do such a great job in the PSP and DS episodes. You guys mentioned Monster Hunter. I was wondering what your thoughts on the series were, and if you have ever played any of them. If not, I highly suggest getting into especially the new Rise and World Monster Hunter games. They are very forgiving for newcomers to the franchise. I think Alex is admitting that we're both bad at video games just now. Did you hear that? They're good for newcomers.
Yeah. Yep.
But you know what?
Called out.
He's not wrong. Personally, I like some of the old ones a little bit more, but I have played them all, and I can't lie, the World and Rise are pretty up there of my favorite games ever. I was also wondering if you guys would ever do an episode on Monster Hunter. I found it kind of interesting. It was a PSP game. Then I believe around Monster Hunter 3, they went to Nintendo, and until World, it was only on the DS. So that is an interesting history to go through different consoles. We'll look into that, Alex. I'll put this on the list.
Yeah, I had Monster Hunter Tri for the Wii that I played. No, so my roommate in college played Monster Hunter Tri on the Wii, and I ended up picking up the like enhanced version of that for the Wii U when it came out. And it was okay. I couldn't really get into it. I tried to get into World as well. I bought that for PS4 around the time it came out. And I don't know. I couldn't get into it. Like the way the weapons worked was just like, I don't know, didn't work for me.
Yeah, I haven't gotten into it yet, but I do want to play these games. I've heard they're very fun. Also, if you guys do end up taking a look into Monster Hunter, I would love to help you guys out with hunts. Ooh, this is good. We're getting help offers because we're bad at games. I can even start a new playthrough so you guys don't feel like I'm carrying you guys. You know, I'm not ashamed to be carried. How about you, Tyler?
No.
We got carried by a 14-year-old in Destiny one time, and it felt great, honestly. That's how we got Whisper of the Worm.
Oh, yeah. That was, wow. That kid really knew what was up.
He really knew how to do it. That was great. Okay, so he goes, don't want to feel like I'm carrying you guys through missions. On that note, I only have Rise, but it is the newest game in the series, and in my opinion, it combines old mechanics with the new mechanics of the world perfectly. Definitely suggest Monster Hunter Rise, your favorite monster spider butt hunter. And this is fun because Alex keeps emailing us, and he starts to realize he's sending us a lot of emails, and I love this part. Just listened to the Metroid Fusion episode, and I remembered I have a perfectly intact sealed Metroid Prime copy.
Whoa!
Just thought it was kind of ironic because Mike wanted a copy to play. P.S. Sorry for all the emails. So he's starting to realize he's sending a lot of emails, which is fine. But this is the best part. The next email. Sorry. No, this is like my fourth email. Is the subject line. You guys should do a video on Ninja Gaiden if you haven't already. Also, a Warframe video would be pretty cool. I know it's kind of relatively new, but it is, I think, 10 years old, and its roots started as a completely different game called Dark Sector, which was a completely different game that I believe was built for the 360.
Didn't that game come out? Dark Sector was like a game that got released, right?
I feel like that game came out because I've heard that before. So, Alex, don't apologize for all these emails. Sorry we're getting them so late. This was like 2 weeks old now with the Olympics being over and all the stuff, you can tell. These are all great suggestions, and I will be adding them to the list because I know Ninja Gaiden is a big deal. That it's a game I never played. And that game also... It's not a Souls-like game, but it did influence Souls-like games, I feel like.
They're very difficult. That's what turned me off. I didn't like that.
Yeah, and that's how I think it's difficult, but fair, I think is the root that people look at of these games. So yeah, I think those are great. So thank you so much, Alex. Appreciate you for the emails. And I like that it's kind of nice having little short ones, like bunch of little short emails. It's different, you know? So that is all the emails we're going to do today. If you want to send us an email for the mailbag episode next week, go to codexhistorypodcast@gmail.com. If you sent us an email and we haven't read it yet, guess what? Next week's your week. We're reading all our emails next week. So send us an email. You can also write in our Discord if you want to have a suggestion for a discussion topic, and I'll start looking in there, making sure I grab those before we record next week. If you want to join our Discord, you can send us an email for an invite, or you can go to my Twitter page at Mecoletta, MECOLETTA. Click on the pinned tweet, and that is an invite that never expires. Tyler's on Twitter at SneakerElf, ELPH. You can talk to him there.
That's true. I do check Twitter even if I never post.
Yeah, I mean, it's just a good way to converse with people. You know, it doesn't have to be posting. Mm-hmm. It can just be talking to people, which is nice. It is social media. You know, you just do the social part. That's what you're known for.
Yep.
Everyone says that about you. Tyler Osby, social. Also,
not media.
Will skip school for plastic guitar games.
True. That's true.
Facts. Well, do you want to close out the episode? Say bye to everybody today?
Yeah. Goodbye, everybody.